Welcome to Goal Journal's Indian Premier League cricket match review.
Glad to be here for this one.
Okay, let's unpack this because, how does a team with literally centuries of cricketing wisdom sitting in its dugout manage to bowl 19 dot balls in a single power play and still get completely dismantled by a rookie?
It's honestly baffling.
It really is.
Yeah.
If you look at a team sheet before a major match, there's this, almost instinctual tendency to weigh the two sides by the sheer gravitational pull of their superstars.
Absolutely. You see those big names and your brain just makes an assumption.
Exactly. You see a lineup stacked with international legends, World Cup heroes, these massive multi-million-dollar contracts, and your brain just automatically calculates a victory.
Yeah, it's the most natural bias in sports analysis, right?
Yeah.
We just equate established expensive names with guaranteed execution.
Yep.
But the clash we're looking at today, this dramatic showdown between the Chennai Super Kings and the Mumbai Indians, it essentially takes that linear thinking, tears it up, and throws it out the window.
Which is exactly why we are doing this deep dive, because this was supposed to be a heavyweight bout.
Totally.
You had Mumbai, the pre-tournament favorites, right? A squad so ridiculously deep that figuring out their playing 11 was basically a luxury problem.
A good problem to have, usually.
Right. And yet, they completely crumbled against a Chennai team that utilized a roster heavily reliant on, lesser-known, uncapped players.
And they use them so effectively.
They really did. So whether you are a die-hard cricket analyst tracking every single pitch map or just someone who loves a good underdog story, there is so much to unpack here about leadership, ego, and the invisible architecture of high-performing teams.
And, to understand where Mumbai's architecture really began to collapse, we have to look at the first 6 overs.
The power play.
Exactly, the power play, because that is where you dictate the physical and psychological terms of a T20 match.
Yeah.
Mumbai's approach to those opening overs wasn't just like poor execution. It was a fundamental breakdown in tactical logic.
So let's look at the actual mechanics of the decisions they made, right? Before a single ball was even bowled.
The drop.
Mumbai drops Akeal Hosein. Let me remind you, Hosein took 4 wickets in the previous match.
He was on fire.
He was their absolute weapon, fully dialed into his rhythm. And they replace him with Prashant Veer, a highly inexperienced spinner.
Yeah, it's just...
I look at this decision, and it feels like benching your star striker in a cup final because, your analytics department suddenly decided they wanted to try an experimental formation.
What's fascinating here is that your analogy is actually spot on. It highlights this total reliance on theoretical matchups over practical reality.
Right.
They were playing on the pitch at Chepauk. And for anyone unfamiliar with the exact soil composition there, Chepauk is historically slow.
It really grips the ball.
Exactly. The surface grips. It forces the ball to turn sharply, but more importantly, it demands a bowler who has absolute masterful control over their length.
Which is exactly Akeal Hosein.
Precisely. He fits that profile perfectly. So to pull him out of the lineup and throw a raw spinner into the deep end against an aggressive top order, it's a staggering miscalculation of the environment.
And we saw the physical reality of that miscalculation almost immediately, didn't we?
Oh, instantly.
Left-handed batter Ryan Rickelton took one look at Prashant Veer's pace and just dismantled him.
3 sixes.
3 sixes in a single over. Rickelton ended up hitting 5 sixes in the power play alone. But wait, here is the piece of data that still doesn't make sense to me.
The dot balls.
Yes. Mumbai actually bowled 19 dot balls in that power play.
19 dot balls out of 36 deliveries. Statistically, bowling that many dot balls should mean you have a complete stranglehold on the batting side.
Right, you're suffocating their scoring options. Because usually dot balls create pressure, and pressure creates wickets.
That's the textbook theory, yeah.
But here, Mumbai still leaked a massive amount of runs. How does a raw spinner like Veer manage to simultaneously bowl dot balls but completely fail to contain the over?
Well, it's because of the lack of middle ground.
What do you mean?
So when a raw spinner bowls on a gripping surface like Chepauk, they often struggle to find that consistent nagging length.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So they either bowl an absolute unplayable beauty that rips past the bat, resulting in a dot ball.
Right.
Or they overcompensate, drop the ball too short, or overpitch it, turning it into an absolute boundary ball.
So there's no sustained pressure.
Exactly. There's no compounding pressure at all. It was just a chaotic mix of brilliant deliveries and terrible ones.
Which brings me back to the Mumbai dugout. You have Rohit Sharma, Mahela Jayawardene, Kieran Pollard, Lasith Malinga sitting right there.
A literal brain trust.
A brain trust of cricketing royalty. How does a team with that much collective field experience allow a purely theoretical, data-driven error, like dropping a red-hot Hussein, to dictate the real-world strategy?
When you have a think tank that heavy with legends, you actually often run into a diffusion of responsibility.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Essentially, yes. The data analysts present a theoretical matchup advantage to the coaching staff. The coaching staff passes it to the captain, and suddenly no one is stepping back to look at the human element.
Man.
Dropping a bowler fresh off a 4-wicket haul signals to your entire locker room that recent performance doesn't matter as much as the spreadsheet.
That's got to create so much anxiety.
It creates a huge baseline of anxiety. They tried to outsmart the opposition, but ended up outsmarting themselves because they assumed they could manufacture an advantage that the Chepauk pitch simply wasn't going to allow.
You definitely see that underlying anxiety in Mumbai. But when you look across the pitch at Chennai, the environment was producing the exact opposite effect. While Mumbai was drowning in their own tactical overcomplications, Chennai essentially weaponized their rookies.
No, we really did.
They didn't just have uncapped players making up the numbers, they actively thrust them into match-defining situations.
And that requires a very specific, deliberate team culture. It is one thing to draft young players. It's an entirely different thing to give them the psychological safety required to execute high-risk skills under immense pressure.
So let's break down Kartik Sharma's innings, because this kid is operating under a monstrous price tag.
Massive.
Somewhere between 14 to 18 crores. In US dollars, you are talking about a player bought for nearly $2 million.
That's a lot of weight for a rookie.
Usually that kind of financial weight acts like a weighted vest on a young player. It ruins their footwork. But Sharma looked completely unbothered.
He was so calm.
He took on Trent Santner, and then, I still can't believe this, he executed a reverse scoop against Trent Bolt to finish the game. Trent Bolt.
Right, and to understand the audacity of that shot, you really have to understand the mechanics of facing Trent Bolt in the death overs.
It's not easy.
Not at all. Bolt operates with blistering pace and a highly deceptive late swing. So to execute a reverse scoop, a batter has to completely flip their grip, expose their stumps, and perfectly anticipate not just the line of the ball, but the exact fraction of a second it will arrive.
Wow. So the margin for error is
essentially zero. If you hesitate for a millisecond because you're worried about your price tag, you are getting bowled.
So how does a team actually strip that financial pressure off a young kid? Because practically telling a 20-year-old, hey, don't think about the millions of dollars we paid you, sounds completely impossible.
It does sound impossible, but it happens through rigid role clarity and the absorption of pressure by the senior leadership.
Okay, so who absorbed it for Chennai?
In Chennai's case, that anchor was Ruturaj Gaikwad. He scored consecutive steady 50s in this tournament.
Right, he was super consistent.
He isn't playing flashy highlight reel cricket, He is systematically rotating the strike and anchoring one end of the pitch.
So he's building the foundation.
Exactly. So when Sharma walks out to bat, the messaging from the dugout isn't, go justify your contract.
Mm-hmm.
The messaging is, Gaikwad is holding the foundation. Your only job is to exploit the gaps.
Oh, that's brilliant.
They narrow the player's focus down to a single executable task.
And it clearly cascades through the whole roster. Like, you had Urval Patel coming in, and fans had been scratching their heads all season wondering why he was benched.
Yeah, people were very confused by that.
And he instantly provides this crucial momentum shift. And then there's Ramakrishna Ghosh, a debutant.
What a story that is.
The scouting department finds him in the Vijay Hazare Trophy, which is a high-pressure domestic tournament where he defended 6 runs in a final over.
Incredible composure.
They give him his IPL debut, and he casually takes the wicket of Suryakumar Yadav for his first ever IPL strike. Is it just luck? Or does Chennai have a specific psychological environment that allows a debutant to casually dismiss an international superstar without breaking a sweat?
Taking out Suryakumar Yadav, a batter who can physically manipulate the ball to literally any 360-degree angle on the field. That is a testament to Chennai's scouting philosophy.
How so?
They aren't just scouting for a high bowling speed or a good stock delivery. They are scouting for temperament. They look for players who have already proven they can regulate their own nervous system in domestic crunch moments. So when they step onto the IPL stage, the bright lights just Don't blind them.
That concept of nervous system regulation is actually the perfect pivot to the ultimate contrast of this entire map.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it wasn't just Chennai's rookies thriving. Here's where it gets really interesting. We have to look at the Kamboj anomaly.
Anshul Kamboj.
Yeah.
His performance was staggering.
He is an uncapped player, right? Yet he is completely dominating both the power play and the death overs.
He really is.
He's maintaining a brilliant economy rate, and he's sitting high up on the purple cap list, meaning he is statistically one of the top wicket takers in a tournament, crawling with the best international bowlers on the planet.
It's wild.
And then you contrast his clinical execution directly with the established ego of Mumbai's biggest star, their captain, Hardik Pandya.
Yeah, the juxtaposition between Kamboj's hunger and Pandya's struggles. I mean, that was the defining narrative of the second innings. Pandya managed a highly sluggish 18 runs off 23 balls.
Which completely flatlined their run chase. Mumbai was sitting comfortably at 100 runs in 11 overs.
They had it set up perfectly.
They had the platform perfectly built. On a pitch where on 100 plus was easily par, they failed to even cross 160. Hardik's innings was like dropping an anchor in the middle of a sprint.
That's a great way to put it.
But honestly, it was his decisions in the field that really exposed the fractures in his leadership.
His bowling rotations were entirely counterintuitive to the physical demands of the surface. I mean, Hardik actually bowled 2 overs himself and had a very good economy rate, yet he pulled himself out of the attack.
And then hands the crucial 19th over to Orton, who is bowling fast. I mean, look at the underlying data of the Chepauk pitch. It is screaming out for off-cutters and slower bouncers.
Exactly. You have to take the pace off.
You need a bowler who takes the pace off the ball, so the batter has to generate all their own power. Orton bowling fast simply allowed the batters to use his pace to find the boundaries.
You are essentially handing the opposition the exact physical tool they need.
Exactly. But the most alarming leadership failure was how Hardik handled Jasprit Bumrah.
Oh, man. That was tough to watch.
Bumrah is not just a fast bowler. He is an absolute master of spatial awareness. Yet Hardik repeatedly failed to let Bumrah set his own fielding placements.
Which is just, it's inexcusable.
Here is the piece that doesn't make sense to me about that. Bumrah doesn't just bowl deliveries, right? He builds funnels.
He's very methodical.
He acts like an architect. He will bowl 3 specific deliveries that freeze your feet just so that by the 4th delivery, he forces you to edge the ball exactly into the slip cordon he built. If you are his captain, how do you justify micromanaging that architecture?
You don't. You really don't. And that is the difference between authoritative leadership and facilitative leadership.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
Well, authoritative leaders want their fingerprints on every single decision, which often stems from a need to prove their own control.
Right.
But facilitative leaders understand that their primary job is to remove obstacles for their savants. When you over-control a maestro like Bumrah, you don't just hurt his individual wicket-taking ability. You damage the entire ecosystem of the team.
Oh, yeah.
A bowler needs the psychological comfort of knowing his captain trusts his traps. If he doesn't have that, he second-guesses his own deliveries.
It's incredibly ironic given Hardik's preseason media tour. I mean, he came into the tournament talking about taking big calls and turning heads.
He certainly turned heads.
He definitely did. But the only thing those authoritative big calls seemed to achieve was alienating his own senior veterans and completely ruining the delicate balance of a historically great franchise.
When a captain becomes the focal point of the friction, rather than the solution to the friction, the entire structure wobbles.
Yeah.
And that wobble affects everyone. Which, brings us to a broader issue. The severe mental friction and inconsistency plaguing the established stars on both sides of this match.
Right. Let's talk about the guys who are supposed to be the foundational pillars for their teams. Let's start with Chennai's side and look at Sanju.
Okay.
He has undeniably been the backbone for Chennai, but his dismissal in this match was just agonizing to watch.
It was a dismissal born entirely out of a failure to adapt to a highly visible threat.
3rd over of the match. Jasprit Bumrah sets a glaringly obvious slip trap on the offside.
Very obvious.
I mean, you could see the geometry of the trap from the upper decks of the stadium. And Sanju, relying purely on his traditional stand-and-deliver mentality without moving his feet, just nicks the ball straight into the trap.
Just feeds it right to them.
If you are an elite international level batter and you see the trap being set, why don't you just take a half step forward and smother the ball? Why walk right into the funnel? Is it arrogance or just a lack of adaptability?
It's really about cognitive load. In high-pressure scenarios, players often regress to their deepest muscle memory.
Oh, interesting.
For years, Sanju's stand-and-deliver approach, where he relies heavily on his elite hand-eye coordination rather than active footwork, it has worked brilliantly.
True, he's made a career out of it.
It feels safe to him. But Bumrah specifically targets that immobility. Bumrah pitches the ball just wide enough that Sanju has to reach for it.
Right.
Because Sanju's base is totally stationary, his hands have to extend away from his body, creating a tiny gap and drastically increasing the probability of an edge. It is simple physics.
So he just couldn't override his default setting.
Exactly. Sanju failed to consciously override his muscle memory and adapt to the physical geometry of the trap.
And then over in the Mumbai camp, you have Suryakumar Yadav suffering from a completely different kind of mechanical breakdown.
SKY has been struggling.
We talked about how SKY can hit the ball anywhere. But right now, he is in a massive slump. He had zero impact on this game.
SKY's situation is a perfect illustration of how fragile elite form really is.
How do you mean?
Well, a 360-degree player requires immaculate microtiming. They are contorting their wrists and manipulating the angle of the bat at the very last millisecond.
It's all about precision.
Entirely.
Yeah.
When a player like that loses their confidence, their timing is thrown off by just a fraction of a second. And in elite cricket, a fraction of a second is the difference between a spectacular reverse scoop and a weak leading edge straight to a fielder.
And that lack of confidence isn't just restricted to batting either. The fielding in this match told a story all on its own.
Oh, the fielding was very revealing.
Look at Shivam Due for Chennai. He was dropping the simplest, most fundamental catches. He dropped a Mandeep in a moment that could have completely shifted the game.
That was a crucial drop.
And the social media reaction was brutally fast. Fans nicknamed him Nirgunan, which roughly translates to useless.
You know, fielding is almost always the truest barometer of a player's internal mental state.
Really?
Yeah. When you are carrying the cognitive load of a batting slump, it physically slows down your reaction times in the field.
That makes a lot of sense.
Your anticipation delays. Your hands become hard instead of soft. Dubé's dropped catches were physical manifestations of a depleted mental bandwidth.
And then you contrast Dubé's heavy, anxious movements with someone like Sarfaraz Khan.
Night and day again.
Sarfaraz takes this incredibly athletic, sharp catch to dismiss a Mandeep later in the innings. It was purely instinctual. It just proves how much physical agility is directly tied to mental freedom and confidence.
It absolutely does. Sarfaraz, a lesser-known player, operating with high energy, total focus, and zero baggage, drastically outperforming the established international star who is actively wrestling with his own mechanics.
Which really is the ultimate thesis of this entire match, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
You can go to the auction, you can write the biggest checks, you can assemble the most expensive, star-studded, legendary roster in the history of franchise cricket.
But it doesn't guarantee a win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if the leadership is fundamentally flawed, if the captain is fighting his own instincts while alienating his maestros, and if the team environment creates anxiety instead of role clarity, well, a cohesive unit of confident, hungry, lesser-known players will dismantle your architecture every single time.
It's like the old saying, a team of champions will almost always lose to a champion team.
Oh, true.
Chennai provided the psychological safety for their uncapped players to express their specific skills without fear of failure. Mumbai, despite all their legendary pedigree and data analytics, honestly just looked like 11 strangers playing in the same uniform.
It really makes you wonder about the broader evolution of franchise cricket. I mean, we are moving into an era defined by hyper-specific matchups and highly specialized data.
We definitely are.
So, are we witnessing the quiet end of the superstar era? Maybe, going forward, the most valuable player on a roster isn't the guy with the biggest personal brand, the massive contract, or the most Instagram followers.
It's an interesting thought.
Right. Maybe the ultimate franchise asset is simply the player who can perfectly execute the smallest, most specific mechanical detail when the pressure is at its absolute highest.
A specialist who knows their role.
Exactly. Something to keep in mind the next time you look at a team sheet and assume you already know how the story ends. Thank you. See you soon with upcoming matches.